If you're following the news at all right now, you're faced with this really stark and painful contradiction.
That's right.
We're going to dive into a cultural phenomenon that, when you really look at it, just makes no sense statistically.
It doesn't. I mean, you look at the cold, hard numbers, the data on family violence, domestic violence, and the overwhelming majority of these heartbreaking cases, they happen completely outside the spotlight in ordinary, non-famous homes.
And yet, when we think about the family tragedies that become these huge national symbols, the ones that get stuck in our memory, they almost always involve a famous name. They feel uniquely Hollywood. So why is that gap so wide? Why does our perception just completely betray the math?
And that disconnect is exactly what we're calling the visibility illusion. Our whole mission in this deep dive is to unpack the psychological and media mechanisms that amplify these specific stories.
So they get overinterpreted.
They get culturally overinterpreted. Not because the entertainment industry is somehow more evil or violent, but because the stories themselves are uniquely loud. They're just so visible.
And we have to start with the immediate context for this, the event that brought this all into such sharp focus this month.
Yeah.
Our source material really kicks off with the recent high-profile tragedy involving the deaths of Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner.
A huge story.
So let's just quickly run through the core reported facts from mid-December 2025. We're talking about Rob Reiner, an absolute icon meathead from All in the Family, the director of The Princess Bride, A Few Good Men,
A legend.
and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, a respected photographer and producer. They were found dead at their Brentwood home.
And because of the names involved, it just instantly becomes national, even international news. That right there is the start of the visibility illusion in action.
Okay, so what do we know from the reports?
According to what's been released, their 32-year-old son, Nick Reiner, was arrested on suspicion of murder or homicide charges. The case is now being presented to prosecutors.
And it was reportedly their daughter, Romy, who found them and called 911.
Right. And the crucial takeaway here is how fast the status of the incident shifts. Because it's Rob Reiner, because of that deep public connection to his work, this isn't just a terrible local police matter anymore.
It's a national crisis narrative.
It demands national attention. When you see this story dominating headlines everywhere, you are literally watching the visibility illusion activate in real time.
And this pattern, this private disaster becoming public consumption, it feels so deeply woven into the fabric of Hollywood. We've seen this before, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely. Let's look back at some of the key cases that have really defined this for generations.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to start with one of the most shocking of all.
Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye, 1984.
Yeah, he wasn't just a star, he was a defining voice, the man behind what's going on. He spoke to the social conscience of the country.
So the shock was immense. It was. Because the star, who shaped public feeling, was killed in a private domestic crisis. He was shot by his own father, Marvin Gaye Sr., during an argument at their home, April 1st, 1984.
The idea that a global superstar could be killed by a parent, it just shatters that image of success and safety.
It does. And his father later faced voluntary manslaughter charges. If we fast forward about 14 years, the shock, it sort of changed texture with the Phil Hartman tragedy in 1998.
The Hartman case felt different. It really crystallized that brutal divide between the public persona and the hidden private life.
Exactly. Because everyone felt like they knew Phil Hartman. He was so reliable, so hilarious, the rock of Saturday Night Live, news radio, the voice of Troy McClure on The Simpsons.
His image was so warm and stable, which is why the violence felt so incomprehensible.
That's it. He was shot and killed by his wife, Bryn Hartman, who then died by suicide. It was like the ultimate terrible reveal of the chaos hiding just behind the curtain.
And that shift from a parent to a spouse, it leads us to other cases that really highlight themes of control and coercion.
Like Dorothy Stratton in 1980.
Right, the Canadian model and actress, Playmate of the Year, her career was just taking off.
And she was murdered by her estranged husband and manager, Paul Snyder. Critically, this happened right after her career accelerated and she was trying to separate from them.
So it's a tragic example of something we see outside of Hollywood, too.
Yes, but amplified. It underscores the profound danger associated with leaving an abusive relationship, especially when the abuser's entire professional and financial existence is tied to you.
And then just a few years earlier, you have the Gig Young case from 1978, which felt like the perfect, grim symbol of Hollywood self-destruction.
Gig Young, an Academy Award winner for They Shoot Horses, don't they? He'd reached the absolute pinnacle.
And just weeks after marrying his wife, Kim Schmidt, He murdered her and then died by suicide.
And the public response to cases like that is to immediately frame them as these dark morality tales, right? They become proof of the corruption of fame itself.
Which brings us right back to our core concept for this deep dive. All these cases, from Gig Young to Rob Reiner, they feed into this visibility illusion.
Precisely. The illusion itself is simple. Celebrity tragedies are statistically quite rare, but because these few spectacular cases get reported so widely, repeated endlessly, and, framed with these really charged
They
narratives,
become exponentially more memorable.
yes, that process creates this false, deep-seated cultural impression that this kind of thing happens all the time in Hollywood, far more than in the real world.
So it's not the rate of the tragedy that's different, it's the intensity of how we experience it. What are the specific mechanisms that make these cases so visible?
We can break it down into three specific amplifiers. The first one is it's pretty obvious. High visibility equals high coverage.
Okay.
When a name like Reiner or Hartman is involved, the story is instantly national. If the exact same tragedy happens to a family down the street, which it does every single day, it stings a local police report, forgotten nationally in 48 hours.
A celebrity case has a built-in audience. It guarantees saturation.
Exactly. Which is why you, the listener, see the Reiner story multiple times a day for weeks, but you never hear about the hundreds of similar tragedies happening quietly in local towns.
Okay, so that's the first mechanism. What's the second?
The second is what we call narrative packaging. Media outlets, and frankly the audience too, we have this powerful hunger for morality tales. We gravitate towards stories that fit these familiar dramatic arcs.
The rise and fall.
The rise and fall, the
Yeah.
dark side of fame, the story that lets you peek behind the curtain.
But is that really fair? Is the media creating that narrative, or are they just responding to a real cultural desire to, confirm our suspicions about fame and excess?
It's a feedback loop. The narrative is constructed to be more compelling than just the facts. A domestic tragedy in an unknown family is simply tragic. A domestic tragedy involving a beloved star is framed as a cautionary tale.
An indictment of the system that created them.
Right. It confirms the script that massive success must come with a terrible price.
And the third mechanism is the most psychological one, the familiarity bias.
Yeah, this is where our brains actually process the event differently. Because of these parasocial relationships we form with public figures, we feel like we already know them.
Through their movies, their music, their TV shows.
Exactly. So when tragedy strikes that person, that pre-existing emotional investment translates into deeper engagement and way, way greater memorability. We feel the loss more acutely, and the case stays top of mind for decades.
So the visibility illusion changes how we process the news, but it doesn't dismiss the tragedy itself. So if Hollywood isn't uniquely violent, let's pivot. Why does it seem to be an environment that clusters so many risk factors?
That's the right question. The environment is an amplifier, not a fundamental cause. Hollywood doesn't invent human vulnerability, but it can intensify existing issues to an extreme degree.
And these factors aren't unique to Hollywood, are they?
No, not at all. You see them in any high-status, high-pressure world business dynasties, elite sports, but they're highly concentrated and magnified in the entertainment industry.
Okay, let's break down those specific risk amplifiers.
The first is this extremely volatile mix of wealth and status volatility. Hollywood careers are defined by spectacular success, but also profound instability.
Today's superstar is tomorrow's has-been.
Exactly. So for family members, conflicts can just explode around issues of dependence, entitlement, and resentment when that success feels like it could disappear at any moment.
You're talking about the financial terror that hits when a show gets canceled and the entire family's lifestyle is on the line.
That, or the resentment from, say, an adult child in their 30s, like in the Reiner case, who feels entitled to a lifestyle funded by their parents' fame, whether they're productive or not. That volatility makes conflicts over money and control explosive.
The second factor, which sadly comes up so often in these stories, is substance access and normalization.
Right. Substance access and normalization is baked into the culture. Historically, and sometimes today, there's been a tolerance for high levels of access and use. Now, the nuance here is crucial. Substances do not cause violence.
But they can be an accelerant.
A massive one. They increase volatility, they dramatically reduce inhibition, they impair judgment, and they can catastrophically escalate a conflict.
And that pressure cooker environment leads right to the third point, mental health strain under public scrutiny.
The pressure and anxiety are just off the charts. Imagine living with the fear that one bad review, one bad photo could mean you're irrelevant. On top of that, the need to maintain a flawless public image often actively discourages people from seeking help.
Wow. So if we take all this, the illusion, the history, the risk amplifiers, what does this mean for us as the audience when we hear this news?
It means we have to be culturally literate consumers. We have to resist jumping to the conclusion that Hollywood is inherently more violent. It's more like a symbolic canvas where we project our own moral lessons about wealth and success.
So instead, we should see these incidents, from Gig Young to Rob Reiner, as these highly visible, extreme outcomes of universal human vulnerability.
Magnified, dramatically magnified by unique financial, social, and psychological pressures.
That's the key takeaway then.
If we boil it all down, it's this. Hollywood isn't more violent than ordinary families. It's more visible, and therefore more culturally legible. It's just easier for us to read and remember.
That is a critical distinction. And as you go forward, maybe processing future stories like this, here's a final thought to explore. What kind of narrative packaging do you, the listener, unconsciously look for when you consume tragic news? Do you find yourself drawn to the story that confirms your ideas about the price of fame, or do you look for the human story about universal family stress? Your instinct there really shapes how you see the world.